If we look at what Matthew says about the ministry of Jesus, we can see many things that would have caused him problems had he tried doing them as a Christian. First, he does not stay put. Standard wisdom tells us that anyone trying to build a Christian community should stay in one place, working with people, working on people, working through people to build up an effective public presence. Buildings must be erected, programs must be initiated, committees must be appointed, leaders must be chosen and trained. Jesus failed to do any of this. Then there's the way in which Jesus invited people to discipleship. He apparently just picked people at random as he walked along the Sea of Galilee. No catechumenate or RCIA, no novitiate, no testing, no training, no retreats or seminars, just come after me. The biggest problem, however, would be what he failed to do. Though he did tell some people to follow him, he did not tell most of those he met to follow him or join a new community of faith. He did not tell them to abandon the religion of their ancestors. He did not tell them to go and do anything. In most cases, he merely told men and women that the kingdom of God, the fulfillment of God's will for creation, was at hand, and then he went on his way with the small group he had invited to come along. Even after performing miracles for people, he simply sent them home. Matthew's gospel is, more than the others, concerned with what the church should look like, what sort of community of faith it should be. Right at the beginning, it challenges what most of our communities of faith are and what we expect them to be. Looking at our structures, our hierarchies, our parishes, our congregations, our orders, and our organizations, and then looking at the billions of people whom we are not reaching with the good news of God's reign, we can only feel uncomfortable. Can it be that we're going about it all wrong? In one sense, Jesus had an easy time of it. He had no church that needed all these things in order to carry out its activities and vocation. We do not have that luxury he had. There is a church. We are that church. We have to learn to live with it and in it and proclaim the kingdom through it. Without it, neither we nor the rest of the world could know the good news. And yet, we will never find an ideal form for our life as church. So, what are we to do? We cannot abandon the developments that have brought us where we are today. After all, they do in fact sustain the community of believers. At the same time, we cannot honestly claim that they all contribute to the most effective proclamation of the gospel. Whatever we have or do as a church, either locally or globally, must be directed to proclaiming the good news. Structures and ways of doing things, even venerable ones, are of secondary importance and must serve those needs. We depend upon our structures and customs, but we must never lose sight of the reason for their existence. We need a sense of perspective. Jesus had such a sense. Rather than worry about other things, he devoted his ministry to proclaiming everywhere and to everyone that God's love was real and really present among them. When that proclamation required disciples, he called disciples. When it did not, he did not. The proclaiming was more important than the follow-up. The church that follows Jesus must be as willing to subordinate everything else to the proclamation of God's love. If that means downplaying or even abandoning certain ways of doing things, so be it. If it means not looking for institutional results, no problem. Even if it means seeing people continue in their old religious traditions, but with a new confidence in God's love, then we must not define our mission as a search for converts. Like Jesus, we must be content to proclaim in deed and word the good news, and call to fellowship those who are needed to further that proclamation, confident that God's love is bigger than the church.